Well, it's another fantastic edition of, at least I hope it's a fantastic edition of being with the mayor this morning on Shaw, and a great day, everyone out there. You know, I've just come back from a 2 week vacation to my home province, Newfoundland. Wonderful, wonderful visit. Got out just before the hurricane struck the island, so of course my heart is still partly there, but you know, my mind and the rest of my heart is fully engaged here in Red Deer, the most beautiful, tremendous city in Canada. And with me this morning is my good friend Brandon Bouchard, the proprietor, the owner of Tribe here this morning. It's such a treat, such a pleasure to be downtown once again at, frankly, I'll say it, one of downtown's most attractive locations, most favorite locations. So, you know, the beauty of the patio is still with us, the weather is still with us, and Brandon, it's great to see you.
Well, thanks, Your Worship. Thanks for coming, and thanks for coming down to Tribe. We really appreciate it. So the potential location of the future shelter was planned for public disclosure on Monday. Provincial feedback for the site has not been finalized. Do you want to say a few words on that?
Yeah, you know, I'm happy to. You know, we continue to work with the province in a very partnering way. As I said, I just got back from holidays, and I think that's one of the potholes we hit was that I wasn't around the last 2 weeks. I'm grateful the province has said, come on down, we still got a few questions for you. So we're on our way to Calgary today. We'll be leaving. I think our meeting is set for 3 today. We're meeting with 3 ministers there. Really these are the ministers that are connected to the shelter funding and operating model and that kind of thing. So that's where we'll be today. We held our council meeting open, or we, in a formal way, recessed it until Thursday, and we hope to bring back the news to the community on Thursday.
And hopefully that's good news.
Well, it's always good news, because when we focus on why we're in the business of having a shelter, it's about vulnerable people. It's about enabling people to get on with their life, and at the same time having a community amenity that's sustainable and the community can have some pride in. So that's the goal, and we're hoping our provincial partners are going to be with us.
Right. Let's get the shovels in the ground, right?
Yeah, there's a good way of putting it, for sure, and we shall see today, Brendan, for sure.
That's great. You brought forward a notice of motion yesterday. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, you know, thank you for that. I really appreciate you touching on that, and I'll just talk about it from a couple of perspectives. First of all, what is a notice of motion? Well, a notice of motion is really a request by council for administration to undertake an additional direction or another direction or whatever. So the only way that we can give direction to administration is through a resolution, is through a decision of council. So that's what a notice is. This particular notice was around the Government of Alberta's Model of Wellness and Recovery Plan. That plan was launched into the public in March. As mayor, I've had 5 months now to digest it, to kind of see where this would fit in Red Deer, how this would fit in Red Deer. From a personal perspective, I've looked at recovery as a doorway to hope, as a doorway for people to restore their lives, as a way to be the best you can be. So I looked at the Alberta report, the Government of Alberta report, in a very non-political way, in the sense that they are positioning recovery and inviting cities and communities to position recovery in such a way that it's tangible for people, that it's personally applicable to people, because this is a very personal journey. So what I want our administration to do, and I hope council will come along with me on the 11th of October, but what I want administration to do is take the whole recovery strategy, if you will, and start embedding it into some of our policy documents that we already have. So for example, we have the drug and alcohol strategy. We have the community housing integration plan. We have the community safety strategy, and we have our policing plan. So what we're doing is we're elevating recovery in a way that it hasn't been addressed, I believe, in the past. And we're able to do that now because we have a recovery center opening up in the city. We have the potential for the Dream Center to open up very soon. We have the drug courts. We have the VOPD programs, the virtual opioid dependency programs, the DOORS programs, things like that that are being delivered out of our police stations and fire halls, things like that. So we have a tremendous opportunity from a timing perspective and a tremendous opportunity from a policy perspective to elevate recovery in the community. It's very exciting for me. And all I need is council to come along with me on the 11th, and we'll see us make some progress.
That's wonderful. Council conducted 3 public hearings on Monday. Mm-hmm. What did you hear from the public in regards to the rezoning Capstone on 47th Street?
Well, anytime you put the word capstone in a public hearing, it's going to ignite people's interest. And this was no different, Brandon. Even though the public hearings in Capstone were really just shutting down 2 roads that were originally planned in that particular area. But what we heard from the public, and I really I always appreciate when the public gets involved with their voice, because council needs to hear it, administration needs to hear it. So what we heard in this case was the concern, if you will, that in sort of shutting 2 roads that were really never intended to be roads, the concern was, and I'm using the wording of one of the public letters, landlocking a business so that people wouldn't be able to see it or have trouble accessing it. So that was some of the feedback we got. So administration was able to talk with that particular citizen and to council last night, saying there's no development plan on that particular parcel, if you will, that particular piece of property for at least 10 years. And even when there is development there will be signage and access from the southern side of it. So that was Capstone. There were 2 more. I had the dynamic signs at Collicut and the dynamic signs at Dock. Interesting mix of those 2 last night. They're both city amenities, as you know. And it's easy sometimes in a public hearing for the public to think that council is actually approving signage for DAW and for Collicut. They weren't. And a public hearing is really for a land use amendment for a future sign. So what we did last night in that particular public hearing was amend some of the area size to fit the dynamic sign, and to amend some of the operating hours and so on that'll come in the future. Got a great lesson. I think everybody that tuned into that public hearing or attended last night got a great lesson in illumination. I kid you not. And I had not heard of the word knit before. I'm not even sure how it's spelled, frankly. But illumination is done in nits. So for example, your iPhone has 350 nits of light on the screen. And that is the maximum brightness that you would see on a dynamic sign. It doesn't mean it will be 350. It could be 250, it could be 100, could be nothing at night. Kind of thing. So we got a bit of an education in light last night, which was awesome. And lightning. All those things. In the end, a council supported the amendments to enable DAW and to enable Collicut to proceed with a development permit, which I imagine we'll see in the next 3 or 4 months, I would say.
Great. Timber Ridge, the amendment first came to council in March. Can you talk about that process and how it landed yesterday?
Absolutely. Timber Ridge, that particular public hearing last night was really a case study in how public hearings should be conducted or how they work. Because originally in March, when the developer, and I'll just say the word applicant, for want of a better word, so the applicant comes to the city and says, this particular area plan you have here, I would like to amend by the following. So of course, anytime a developer does that, the affected residents are notified and so on. So this is what happened in March. So there's going to be some changes made into some of the lot sizes. There's going to be some changes made onto park frontage, some changes made to traffic control, things like that. The neighborhood, in this case, Timber Ridge neighborhood, came back to council, came back to the developer and saying, we're concerned about this particular plan because it narrows the park access that we thought we had. It actually provides more complex parking or traffic, forgive me, flow through our neighborhood. And it takes away from some of the, what I'll say in developer language, R1 lots. An R1 lot is a typical separated bungalow type of thing, and turns them into a more denser housing formula. So council in March asked the developer and administration to go back to the table and saying, well, the public in that particular area are adversely affected, and we want to see more of a win-win here. You know, so work harder to get a win-win. When it came back to council last night, and I made this comment personally last night, when it came back to council last night, every citizen that had a problem with the development in March, and I thought they were quite legitimate problems, had turned around and said, thank you for working so hard, and their thank you was to the city and to the applicant, the developer, at really coming up with a development that we can all live with. And so last night when council met, I believe every single councillor there congratulated both our administration and the applicant for working to that win-win, because the community really saw it as a win-win. So last night we unanimously approved the new application for the developer. They can now proceed with a development that the community embraces, and so there's a win-win all around. So it's a terrific result.
We're growing.
We are growing, and you know, Brendan, thank you for using the word growing. We're not only growing, in terms of a community, population-wise and residence-wise, but we're growing in our ability to understand each other's point of view, to sit and listen, and to understand that there's a way to make a successful development without, taking away the hopes and dreams and plans of a neighborhood. And so on. So we're, if anything we could take as a lesson out of this public hearing is that when we get together in a spirit of partnership, we can make things work. We can make things happen. And that's what I was most encouraged about last night.
Council was busy yesterday. Was there anything else from yesterday's meeting you wanted to touch on?
I'll tell you, council was so busy yesterday. I left work yesterday. I was feeling like I had gone 15 rounds with Mike Tyson, and he actually bit my ear in the 4th round, and then he pummeled me for the remaining 11. Anyway, it was a long day for council. We did some great work. The last thing I'll say, Brandon, is we started the meeting yesterday with thinking about our maritime counterparts and what they're going through with the hurricane. That's my home province. Sure. that got the brunt of the property damage and that kind of thing. So council took some time to think about not only the affected people and their struggle right now, but also to remind ourselves and all our citizens, Shaw viewers today, that when you come up with a 72-hour emergency plan, think about what that actually looks like. It's not just going into a crawl space, if you're fortunate enough to have one or whatever, for a day or two. It's making sure you have enough water, making sure you have enough dried food, for example, make sure you have a spare propane tank, or things like that. Really think about what it's like if there are no public services for a few days, and so on. And that's what we're discovering in the Maritimes now, the challenges around that. So our hearts went out there, to the Maritimes, and I thought council did a great job in sending out that message.
That's great.
Well, if we have a sign off to the great viewers of Shaw out there, it's this. We still have some great weather down here. Brandon, I'm sure you and your team are up for some lunch and some supper and perhaps a glass of wine or two. And
why not?
And some great hospitality. And that's what our whole patio is known for here, folks. It is a culture to itself. We put an entertainment district out there in June. Frankly, I'll say thanks in large part to the leadership of Brandon and his team at the Downtown Business Association. We have a fantastic addition to our Ross Street here, and we still have time to enjoy it. So come on down. I think the weekend weather looks good.
Yep.
And I'm sure the people at Tribe are up for the challenge.
Indeed, Your
All right.
Worship. Let's gather, shall we?
Let us gather indeed. Take care, folks.
Thanks
and we'll
so much.
see you in a few weeks.